Hello students. This first topic which we are going to study today is the scope and excitement of physics. So let us first find out that what is the scope of physics. Students, scope basically means the areas or the range which a particular thing covers. So scope of physics in general is very wide. We can understand it better by looking at its various sub-disciplines. So there are two main domains of interest. Two main domains of interest. First is the macroscopic domain and the other one is the microscopic domain. Let us understand a little about these two domains. So macroscopic domain basically deals with all the laboratory, terrestrial, and astronomical phenomena. Laboratory, as the name suggests, any kind of the experiments which we perform in the controlled environment of the laboratory will be the laboratory phenomena. Terrestrial basically means anything which is related to the earth, which means that all kind of the phenomena which are happening on the earth is basically the terrestrial phenomena. Astronomical means the phenomena that is related to the celestial bodies like the sun, moon, stars, galaxies, planets, etc. are called as the astronomical phenomena. So it deals with all the we can say deals with all the phenomena at laboratory, terrestrial and astronomical scales. So this is the macroscopic domain. Classical physics basically deals with all the macroscopic phenomena. Classical physics deals with all the macroscopic phenomena. Now what is classical physics, students? All of the physics which is basically the pre-1900 physics is the classical physics. The post-1900 physics is modern physics. Pre-1900 physics basically means that all of the mechanics, the Newton's law of motion and gravitation and everything related to the motion of the bodies and other things, other physics which we study, which we obtained before 1900 basically comes under the category of the classical physics. Modern physics incorporated the elements of the relativistic theory given by Einstein as well as the quantum mechanics. So that when included together with this forms the modern physics. Now there are a few subjects which come under the category of the classical physics. We all must have heard a little about them. We have heard the names of those subjects. Mechanics, electrodynamics, optics, thermodynamics. These are some of the subjects which come under the category of the classical physics, right? We'll study these later in detail. Just we'll get an idea about this right now. What are the basic laws behind them? What are the topics? What are some of the problems which we'll come across in these subjects? Let's find out. One is mechanics. Mechanics, students, deals with the equilibrium as well as the motion of the bodies, right? They can be the rigid body, deformed body, or the general system of the particles. So it deals with the motion of the body. Motion of the body, as we know, means changing the position of the body. If a body is changing its position with respect to time, we say that the body is moving, right? Equilibrium basically means that the vector sum of all the forces of the body which are acting on the body is equal to 0, which means that the body is basically in a state of rest. Now what is rigid body? Rigid body is basically any body which retains its shape, which is the distance between the two particles, we can say, remains fixed. That is a rigid body. Deformable body is the one in which on the application of the force the shape or the volume will change. It will change its form, right? So it deals with the motion and equilibrium of the rigid, deformable bodies and the general system of the particles. This all we will study under mechanics. Now the basic laws which govern the mechanics. So the basis is Newton's laws of motion and Newton's law of gravitation. It has got three laws. Newton's law of gravitation is there, F equal to gm1 m2 upon r square. All of the mechanics is based upon these two laws. Now some of the problems which we will come across in while studying mechanics are, first is like the propulsion of the rockets by a jet of ejecting gases or propagation of sound or water waves in air. How the rockets are moving by a jet of ejecting gases, or how the sound waves or the water waves propagate in the air. These are some of the examples of the problems which will come across in the case of mechanics. Alright, electrodynamic students deals with all the electric and magnetic phenomena of all the electric and magnetic bodies. So electrodynamics basically deals with all the electric and the magnetic phenomena of the electric and the magnetic bodies. Now what is the basis of the electrodynamics? So basis of electrodynamics is basically some of the laws given by Oersted, Ampere, Faraday and Coulomb gave some rules, gave some laws, and on the basis of those rules and laws is the entire electrodynamics based, right? So this is about electrodynamics, a little definition, little idea and the basis of electrodynamics. Now we'll get to know a little about the topics which we will study in electrodynamics. Some of the topics which we will study in electrodynamics are like the motion of a current carrying conductor in a magnetic field or working of antenna. These are some of the topics which we'll study in electrodynamics, like motion of the current carrying conductor in the magnetic field. When a current carrying conductor is moved in a magnetic field, what are the forces acting on it, how it will respond, what all we will obtain because of that, working of the antenna. These are some of the topics which we'll study in electrodynamics. Third is optics. Optics deals with all the phenomena involving light. Right. Optics basically deals with all the phenomena involving light. What are some of the topics or some of the problems which we will study in optics are like the working of the telescope, or the working of microscope, so all kinds of phenomena involving light, like we see the rainbow. Why does the rainbow appear, right? The interference, the diffraction, dispersion, everything we'll study in optics. Alright, so thermodynamics basically deals with the transfer of energy from one form to the other, or one place to other, right? The key concept here is that heat is a form of energy which corresponds to a definite amount of work. So students, thermodynamics basically deals with the transfer of energy, which means that the flow of energy from one body to the other body or from one place to the other place, right? This is what we'll study in thermodynamics. Basically, thermodynamics means the flow of the heat, right? Dynamics, as we know, means anything which is moving, which is in the motion, which is flowing. So basically here thermodynamics means, thermo means we can say that temperature or heat, right, which is temperature which is changing, or the heat which is flowing from one the key concept is that the heat is a form of energy which corresponds to the definite amount of work. So the heat is basically flowing from one place to the other place, and it is being converted into work, or it corresponds to a definite amount of the work. So this is what we will study in thermodynamics, right? Some of the topics which we will study, or some of the problems which we will study here are the efficiency of the heat engine, or the efficiency of a refrigerator. So efficiency means that how much of the heat is converted into the work, that will, how much efficient is a device, basically we'll study in thermodynamics for the heat engine and for the refrigerator. Heat engine is basically a device which converts the heat energy into some mechanical energy, which is further converted into the mechanical work by using a working substance, right? And the opposite of, or the reverse of the heat engine is a refrigerator. So all of these topics we'll study in thermodynamics. So students, this was a little idea about the macroscopic phenomena. Now we'll discuss the microscopic phenomena. So microscopic domain, as we studied, it deals with the atomic, nuclear and molecular phenomena. That is the structure and constitution of matter and its interaction with the neutron, proton, electron, etc. So microscopic basically deals with the atomic, nuclear and molecular phenomena. We know that matter, all the matter is composed of very small tiny indivisible particles which are called as the atoms, right? This is matter. There are three states of matter: solid, liquid, gas. It is composed of the atom, and atom consists of the nucleus, right? Nucleus has neutron and proton, and the electron is revolving around the nucleus in the circular orbit. So this whole system will be called as the atom. So we deal with all, we combine two or more atoms together, we form a molecule, right? So it deals with all the atomic, molecular and nuclear phenomena, how they move, what all is happening inside that. So we'll study in that. That is the structure and constitution of the matter and its interaction with neutron, proton, electron. When any of these is interacted with the neutron, proton and electron, then what happens also we'll study in the microscopic phenomena. Quantum mechanics deals with all the microscopic phenomena, right? So students, this was a little idea about the scope of the physics. Theoretically, we were studying about the scope of the physics in terms of its sub-disciplines, in terms of its domains which it covers. One is so wide that, I mean, the two domains which are covered here is like the atomic, nuclear, molecular. That means one is at the very minute scale of the structure of the matter or the composition of the matter, and the other is like very huge, very enormous range, which is the laboratory or the terrestrial phenomena or even the astronomical phenomena. So we are covering a very enormous range in physics. Now we have studied it theoretically, and now we'll understand it in terms of certain dimensions so that a better picture comes into our mind. To understand the scope of the physics, we'll take a look at the three dimensions, which is the length, mass and time. And then we will see that what are the lengths, time and masses which are covered under physics, right? Okay, so the length basically goes from 10 raised to the power minus 15 meters, which is the size of the nucleus, to 10 raised to the power 26 meters, which is the size of the universe. All right. Okay. In terms of mass, we have 10 raised to the power minus 30 kg, which is the mass of the electron, to 10 raised to the power 30 kg, which is the mass of sun. In terms of time, we will go from 10 raised to the power minus 23 seconds, which is the time taken by light to cross a nuclear distance, or say the nuclear diameter, to 10 raised to the power 18 seconds, which is the life of sun. So students, from here we can get an idea about such a wide range which is covered in physics. At one place we have the size of the nucleus, such a small tiny constitution of matter. Even the constitution of the matter is atom. Inside the atom we have the nucleus. We know the size of that. Also we know the size of the universe, which is 10 raised to the power 26 meters, and also we know the phenomena happening in them. We can give a correct explanation, precise explanation about all of those phenomena. Similarly, in mass we go from 10 raised to the power minus 30 kg to the mass of the sun. Also in time we go from 10 raised to the power minus 23 seconds to 10 raised to the power 18 seconds, which is like here the time taken by the light to cross a nuclear distance, which means that we have a nucleus like this. So the nuclear diameter is like this. So the distance is this, and the time which is taken by the light to cover this distance, to cross this distance, is 10 raised to the power minus 23 seconds, and this is the life of the sun. So this much of enormous range we cover in physics, and also we have so much of knowledge about all of these ranges, right? We have such precise equipments which give us with such precise, accurate values of all of these things. So you can from here see so much of work which has been done in physics and how much physics is useful for us. So students, this was a little idea about the scope of physics. Now we'll study about the excitement of physics. Alright, students, whenever we do any work, then there is some kind of the driving force, some kind of the motivation which we have, because of which we do a work. And when we do it with lot of effort, lot of hard work, and that work is good, we get lot of satisfaction in that, right? So there has to be some kind of the driving force, some kind of the excitement to do the work. Also in case of the physics, there is some kind of excitement that the scientists, that the inventors discover so many things, they invent so many things, they find out so many theories, they work so much that they work day and night, right? Always for the help, so that they can devise something, they can invent something, they can find out something which is very helpful for the humankind, right? So let us discuss a little that why, from where this excitement comes, right? So we will discuss it in 3 points basically. First is the elegance and universality of physics. Now students, in physics we have a handful of laws. We have very few laws which explain a wide variety of the concepts or wide variety of the phenomena, right? For example, Newton's law of motion explains the fall of the apple on the ground. Also the same phenomena explains that why the planets are moving around the sun or the moon is moving around the earth. So you can see the range, but there's just one concept, just one law which explains both of these, right? Universality means that whether I stand here, whether I stand in Sikkim, whether I stand in America, I stand at any place, even on the moon, the law will be the same. It will not change its form. So that is the universality of physics. Second thing is that there is thrilling challenge. Or we can say there's thrilling challenge in performing the imaginative new experiments to unlock the secrets of nature and to verify and disprove the theories. There is thrilling challenge in performing the imaginative new experiments to unlock the secrets of the nature and to verify and disprove the theories. Students, whenever we observe a phenomena in the nature, in the world, we studied about the scientific method. We try to repeat it with the help of experiments in the laboratory, find out the qualitative and quantitative reasoning, do the mathematical modeling, find the reason behind that, find out the theory behind that, right? All of that we do. All right. So since everything is new, so there is actually a kind of challenge which we accept to find out the reason behind the phenomena, right? And it is in a way in which we can unlock the secrets of the universe, we can unlock the secrets of the nature, right? Since we are performing an experiment which is similar to the happening of the natural phenomena. All right, we arrive at the theory and then we disprove the theories as well. Disprove the theories means that whenever any kind of the new observation or new results we obtain, then we do the modification in that theory, or sometimes the theory becomes completely invalid, so we disprove the theories as well. So it is all kind of a challenge. It is interesting to apply and exploit the laws of the physics to build the meaningful devices, which means, students, that we know the laws of the physics, we try to apply it practically, right? Or we exploit it so that we can build some meaningful device, some kind of the device which is helpful for the humankind, right? For example, we are aware with the laws of electricity and magnetism, right? So these laws of electricity and magnetism form the basis for they helped a lot, or they led to the wireless communication. And wireless communication, as we know, is used in the technology which is used in the mobile phones, right? So in this way we apply and exploit the laws of the physics to build some meaningful devices. So these are the 3 points which excite the scientists, the physicists, to keep on working, right? The universality, the elegance, the how we apply and exploit the laws of the physics to build something meaningful, or we find out the secrets of the nature. So these are the sources of excitement for the physicists. So this was a little idea about the scope and the excitement of physics, students. Now the development of physics through a chain of the discoveries has been very interesting. Let's study that. Students, in this topic I will give you some interesting examples from our history related to the scientists, with the help of which you will get the idea that how such simple daily life events led to the discovery of something so meaningful and so useful. First thing is, fall of apple on Newton's head led to gravity, right? Students, it is said that Newton was sitting under an apple tree, when an apple fell on his head, and from there only he got the idea about the gravity, that why this apple is falling down, why is it not going up or in any other direction, right? He thought about it, he worked about it, and then he eventually arrived at the law of gravitation. The same law of gravitation, as we know, also describes the motion of the planet around the sun and the earth around the moon. Second one is that the rattling of a kettle lid led to the discovery of the steam engine. Students, whenever we boil the water in a container and cover it with the help of a lid, then we'll always observe that when the water begins to boil, then the cover begins to rattle, or the lid begins to rattle, which means that it begins to shake or move a little from its original position, right? It begins to shake. So from here it was observed that the power of steam is so much that it is capable of moving a kettle lid, of moving a lid or a cover of the container. Then why not this power be used to move the machines, to run the machines? It can be connected with the flywheel so that the rotational work could be produced from it, and then we can run the machines with the help of that. Third one is, students, about Galileo Galilei observed the swinging lamps and discovered a time measuring device. Galileo Galilei was working in the University of Pisa. One day he went to the church and he observed the chandeliers or the lamps which were hanging from the ceiling. He observed the lamps which were hanging from the ceiling. Also he observed that no matter what is the size of the lamp, the time which is taken by the lamp to complete one oscillation is always the same, and he measured that time by observing his pulses, right, by noting down the number of the pulses. So from there he got this, since there was no time measuring device before that. So from there he got the idea about the development of a time measuring device, right. Also there's a law of pendulum which is related to that. Okay, so one more example is of Archimedes, which is very interesting. It is said that Archimedes was taking bath in a tank. When he discovered his principle. So students, it is said that Archimedes was taking bath in a tank of water and he discovered his principle right there, and he was so excited that he ran out of the streets crying Eureka, Eureka, which means that I have found in Greek, right. Now what does the principle of Archimedes say? It says that whenever a body is immersed partially or fully in a fluid, then an upward thrust acts upon the body which is equal to the weight of the water which is displaced by the body. So students, from here you can see that these are such simple daily life events which led to the discovery of such meaningful principles, such useful principles and devices which are so helpful for the humankind. Let us study that what lies behind the progress of the physics in the last few centuries. Students, as we see that in the last few centuries the physics has grown very rapidly. It has grown to a great extent. There are a lot of developments made in the physics in the last few centuries. So there are 3 points basically which we'll discuss, which lie behind the progress of the physics in the last few centuries. Number 1 is the change of perception from qualitative to both qualitative and quantitative. Alright, so students, qualitative reasoning, qualitative thought we studied basically is the logical thinking, the logical reasoning, all the knowledge which we have, all the information which we have, all the experiences which we have. On the basis of that we find the reason, we try to find the reason behind a particular phenomena. So there was a change of perception from that kind of the reasoning to a reasoning which is qualitative as well as quantitative, which means that it involves a kind of the mathematical modeling, which with the help of which we can arrive at a formula. Now the formula helps us a lot in understanding the phenomena as well as in remembering the phenomena. Also it will help us because the formula simply can be used in the future for developing something more meaningful and useful out of that principle or law, right. So that because of that the applicability also becomes very easy. So there was a change of perception from qualitative to both qualitative and quantitative. Second thing is universality. Universality, as we studied, that the same law is applicable in an enormous range, like the Newton's law of gravitation we studied about, right. Third is the strategy of approximation. So strategy of approximation basically is that focus is to find out the essential feature of the phenomena and then apply the corrections. So students, strategy of approximation basically means that we apply a strategy, we use a strategy in which we arrive at the essential feature of the phenomena first, and then we apply the corrections because of any other thing to arrive at a more refined theory of the same phenomena. Let us understand the third point with the help of an example. While studying gravity, what was done, that a stone and a feather, say this is a feather, both of these were dropped from some height at the same time, right? But they did not reach the ground at the same time. Why? Because the essential feature of the phenomena, which is gravity, has been complicated by air resistance. So what was done, that a long evacuated tube was taken, evacuated tube basically means that no form of matter is present, not even the air, so there's no point of the air resistance. Inside that, the same experiment was performed and it was observed that both of these reached the ground at the same time, and hence we arrived at the essential feature of the phenomena, that gravity is independent of the mass, right? This is first case. This is secondly, the same thing was performed in a long evacuated tube, and we arrived at the result that gravity is independent of the mass, right? Then what we did, we again went back to the feather, we applied the air resistance, and then we developed a more realistic theory of the phenomena of gravity, right? So this means that we achieved our essential feature of the phenomena, which is that G is independent of M. Then we applied the correction because of the air resistance to the same phenomena, to the same feather, and then repeated the experiment and arrived at a more realistic theory, right? So this is what lies behind the progress of the physics in the last few centuries, that is a change of perception from qualitative to combination of qualitative and quantitative, the universality and the strategy of approximation, of focusing first on the essential feature and then applying the corrections to modify it or to refine it better. Physics, technology and society are very related to each other, which is our next topic: physics, technology and society. Student, all three of these are very interconnected with each other. Let's understand it with the help of an example. We studied a little earlier about thermodynamics, right? So students, thermodynamics basically arose to understand and improve the working of the heat engine, right? It arose to understand and improve the working of a heat engine. All right, now heat engine, student, steam engine is a type of the heat engine which is very closely related to the Industrial Revolution in England in the 18th century. And this Industrial Revolution has a great impact on the human civilization. So students, thermodynamics arose from the need to improve and understand the working of the heat engine. Steam engine is a type of the heat engine which played a great role in the industrial revolution in England in the 18th century, and this industrial revolution had a great impact on the human civilization. So we can see that how physics, technology and society are greatly interconnected with each other. Alright, now let's get to know a little more about all of this. Heat engine is basically a device which is used to convert the heat energy into the mechanical energy, which can be further converted into the mechanical work. Right. Steam engine is a type of the heat engine which uses the force which is produced by the steam pressure to do the work. Right. So, or which uses the steam as the working fluid. Alright, now before the industrial revolution in England in the 18th century, the manpower, the horsepower or the water power were the primary sources of the power for running the machines to produce the work. Right. After the discovery of the steam engine, the industries could be located anywhere without any kind of the dependency upon the availability of the water of the seasons or availability of the horsepower or the manpower. Right. So they can be set up anywhere using the steam power. So this led to kind of a revolution of the industries being set up all over England after the 18th century. So that's what is called that this led to the industrial revolution. Sometimes the physics gives rise to a new technology, and sometimes the technology gives rise to new physics. For example, the laws of electricity and magnetism in the 19th century led to the wireless communication. Wireless communication, as we know, is very useful in the mobile communication and many more things. So this is how physics and technology are related to each other. Also, a significant area where physics has and will contribute is to develop the alternate energy resources, because the existing resources are getting exhausted day by day. So we have learned, we have studied about, or we have also seen about the conversion of the geothermal and the solar energy into the electricity. We have the solar lamps, solar lights, many more things which we have related to the solar energy, which is being converted into the electrical energy. It can be charged with the help of the sun, and then it can be used for the electricity. Now in the next topic, student, that we are going to study, we'll learn a little about the scientists from the different countries of the world, the different origins and their major contribution or major discoveries. And from there we'll get an idea about how much multicultural is the character, how much international is the character of the scientific endeavor. Student Archimedes, he gave the principle of buoyancy and the principle of lever. He was from Greece. Galileo Galilei, these are, I'm writing a few names which you must have definitely heard. Galileo Galilei gave the law of inertia. He was from Italy. Isaac Newton gave the Newton's law of motion. law of gravitation, and the reflecting telescope. He was from United Kingdom. Albert Einstein gave the relativistic theory and also the explanation of photoelectric effect, and he was from Germany. S.N. Bose, Quantum Statistics, India. C.V. Raman, Inelastic Scattering of Light, by Molecules, again India. So students, this is just a few names in the table which I have written, which shows the major contribution of the discovery, the name of the scientist or the physicist, and their country of origin. So from here you can very well see that how much multicultural and international is the character of the scientific endeavor. So many scientists, so many physicists from around the world contributing to the same cause of physics, to help them to help develop new theories, new discoveries, new inventions which could be helpful for the humankind. So basically this is the idea behind physics, to help the humans, right, to help the society, to help the civilization. So students, this list obviously is non-exhaustive. You can add as many names from the internet or from the books as you can, and you can see that how interesting is it that so many scientists have developed so many things, so many theories, right. So this was all about today's lecture. This was all about today's class, students. In the next class, we'll study some more topics of the same chapter. Do join the next class. Thanks for watching.